Good day, everyone, and welcome back to our session on boundary management in relationships. I hope you have all had a chance to reflect on our previous discussions about the importance of boundaries. Today, we will delve deeper into this topic, exploring various aspects such as reflective questions, boundary violation, conflict resolution, and more. By the end of this session, you will have a deeper understanding of how to navigate boundaries effectively in various types of relationships. Now, let's start by exploring some reflective questions about boundaries. Reflective questions are important because they help us gain insight into our own boundaries and understand the boundaries of others. Take a moment to think about the following questions. First, we have, what are your personal boundaries in different relationships? So here you'll have to consider boundaries related to physical space, for example, personal space or touching. You can also consider emotional boundaries such as sharing feelings or empathy. Also consider time boundaries such as balancing time together and apart, and personal values such as beliefs and morals. Second question, how do you feel when your boundaries are crossed? So you have to reflect on past experiences where your boundaries are violated. Ask yourself, did it make you feel uncomfortable, angry, or disrespected? Third, we have, do you communicate your boundaries effectively to others? So here, you'll have to think about whether you clearly express your needs and preferences to those around you. Are you assertive in setting boundaries, or do you tend to avoid confrontation? The fourth and last question, are you respectful of others' boundaries? So here you will have to consider how you respond when others set boundaries with you. Do you respect their wishes, or do you push back or disregard their boundaries? So if you need more time to reflect on these questions, please pause this video and try to answer the questions. So the agenda for today's class, first we will discuss about boundary violation. We'll also learn about how to resolve conflicts effectively. Then we will go into balancing independence and togetherness in relationships. Then we will also discuss cultural and personal differences. Then we'll also learn how to adapt boundaries over time. We'll also discuss empathy and understanding in relationships. Then we'll also learn to build trust through boundaries. And then towards the end, we'll also discuss how to measure relationship boundary. Now, let's talk about boundary violations. Boundary violations occur when someone disregards or crosses another person's boundaries. These violations can happen in various ways and can lead to discomfort, resentment, and strain in relationships. Here are some examples. Physical boundary violation. Here, invading personal space without permission, such as standing too close or touching someone without consent. Example, a classmate of yours leans over your desk without permission to look at your book, invading your personal space. Next example can be of emotional boundary violation. So here, sharing personal information without consent, such as gossiping about someone else's private life. For example, a friend reveals personal details about your struggles or your problems that you're facing without your permission during a social gathering. Third, we have intellectual boundary violation. So here, ignoring emotional cues or dismissing feelings such as belittling someone's emotions or refusing to acknowledge their needs. For example, a partner brushes off your concerns about an issue in the relationship, which will make you feel invalidated. Next, we have material boundary violation. So here, pressuring someone to do something they are uncomfortable with, such as pushing them to share personal information or participate in activities that they are not interested in. For example, a family member pressures you to lend them money despite your discomfort and financial concerns. And again, remember that recognizing boundary violations is the first step toward addressing them and maintaining healthy relationships. Next, we have conflict resolution. So as you all know, conflict is inevitable in any kind of relationships, especially when boundaries are crossed or misunderstood. Let's discuss how to effectively resolve conflicts related to boundaries. Here are steps you can take. First, identify the issue. Here, clearly define what boundary was crossed and how it made you feel. For example, when you share personal information, for example, you can say something like this. When you share personal information about me without my consent, it makes me feel violated and disrespected. So this is one way where you can identify the issue. So here what you do is you actively try to identify what boundaries the other person has crossed and try to put that problem in front of them so that, you make them also understand or put their attention to this issue. Next step is to communicate calmly. So here you'll have to express your feelings and needs using I statements. We have already discussed this in the previous session. So instead of blaming the other person, focus on how their actions affect you. So most of the times what happens is there is a tendency that we put the whole blame on other person. So that is very unhealthy. So here what we can do, for example, is we can tell them, I feel hurt and betrayed when my personal information is shared without my permission. So students, here we are strictly talking about the boundary crossing of boundaries when a person shares your personal information to another person. So here, whatever steps that we're talking also will be related to that scenario. The third step is to listen actively. So here you'll have to hear other person's perspective and validate their feelings. Allow them to explain their intentions and perspective without interrupting. Fourth, we have seeking compromise. So here find a solution that respects both parties' boundaries and needs. Here you brainstorm potential solutions together and be willing to make compromises. So when we speak about compromise, we are not basically speaking about only you compromising with this issue as such. No, you also make the other person compromise the issue as such. So it has to be mutual. And then, again, it's very important for you to ask yourself, does this relationship or, friendship means a lot to me than whatever conflicts that has occurred. And the final step in conflict resolution is follow up. So here you have to check in to ensure the resolution is working and adjust if necessary. It's important to revisit the issue later to ensure that both of you feel satisfied with the outcome. So that is about conflict resolution. Next, we have balancing independence and togetherness. So in any healthy relationships, it's important to strike a balance between independence and togetherness. Let's talk about how to achieve this balance effectively. Here are some key points to remember. First, respect each other's needs for personal space and autonomy. So here you'll have to encourage each other to pursue individual interests and hobbies without feeling guilty or neglected. For example, support your partner in their solo hobbies or activities and take time for yourself without feeling guilty. Second, foster a sense of connection and intimacy through shared experiences and communication. So here, spend quality time together and communicate openly about your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Maybe have meaningful conversations to strengthen your emotional bond. So I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, I'm also talking about friendships or family relationships as well. Next, you can communicate openly about individual needs and preferences. So here you'll have to be honest and transparent about your boundaries and encourage your partner to do the same. This will help ensure that both parties feel respected and understood in the relationship. For example, have a conversation with your partner or have a conversation with a friend about your need for alone time and discuss how you both can support each other's boundaries. So when we speak about balancing independence and togetherness, it's also very important for you to have a conversation regarding this with your friend or partner or your family member, so that the other person also tries to balance independence and togetherness as well, because the effort should not be only from your side, right? Yeah. So, for any relationship or for any work, friendship or family relationship to work, all the efforts has to be mutual. Next, we have cultural and personal differences. Cultural and personal differences can influence boundary preferences. It's essential because it's essential to recognize that different cultures and backgrounds may have varying views on boundaries. So, as you all know, maybe when you're in college or when you're in class, you meet a lot of different people from different places, from different culture, from different socioeconomic background, from different religion, right? So here it's very important for us to recognize or realize that in some cultures the boundaries are different. In some it's the opposite, maybe, right? For example, in some cultures, physical touch may be more acceptable than in others. So it's important to respect these cultural preferences and adjust your behavior accordingly. For example, when you're meeting someone for the first time, and if that person is from different culture or different background, so it's very important for you to learn about their culture, learn about their cultural boundaries as such, and then necessarily or accordingly, you can make necessary changes. Next, we have in cultural and personal differences, it's also essential to respect and accommodate each other's cultural and personal boundaries. For example, if your friend comes from a culture where extended family members are highly involved in personal matters, be understanding and supportive to their need for their family involvement. Even when you meet their family members, or even when you go to their home, and if you see that they are so much involved with their family members, instead of feeling bad for it, it's very important for you to respect it, because that's how their family dynamics works. Again, it's also essential to communicate openly and seek understanding when differences arise. For example, if you and your friend have different views on privacy, discuss your perspectives and find a compromise that respects both your boundaries. So that's about cultural and personal differences. Next, we have adapting boundaries over time. So, as we already discussed, boundaries may change as relationships evolve. Factors such as life events, personal growth, and shifts in priorities can impact boundaries. So, it's very important to regularly reassess and communicate boundaries as needed. For example, as you and your friend navigate new life stages, such as becoming parents or getting married, your boundaries around time, space, and responsibilities may need to be adjusted. Next, be flexible and willing to adapt to changing circumstances. For example, if your friend's work schedule changes and you may need to renegotiate your shared responsibilities and alone time. Next, maintain open dialogue with your friends or loved ones about evolving needs and expectations. For example, have regular check ins to discuss how you're both feeling about the friendship and whether any adjustments need to be made to your boundaries. So that's about adapting boundaries over time. So, here, as we already discussed, the key to um, have a healthy boundary is to communicate effectively with the other person. Next, we have empathy and understanding. So, as you already know, empathy and understanding are essential for navigating boundaries effectively. So, it's very important for you to practice putting yourself in the other person's shoes to better understand their perspective. For example, if your friend cancels plans at the last minute, try to consider their reasons and feelings before reacting. So it's very important for us to know their perspective or know their circumstances whenever something unexpected happens. So it takes a lot of patience to put yourself in other person's shoes and understand their situation and then act accordingly. Next, we have validating their feelings and experiences, even if you don't agree with them. So here, if your classmate expresses discomfort about attending a program, acknowledge their feelings and discuss alternative options. What else can be done, or how else can maybe if it's related to some projects, and if your friend says, I might not, if it's regarding group project, if your friend says that I might not be available this weekend to discuss regarding group project. So instead of reacting very badly, ask them what other time or when else are they free. Next, we have communicating compassionately and respectively to others. So here what you do is instead of criticizing your sibling for their choices, express your concerns in a caring and non-judgmental way. So it's about empathy and understanding. So when we make our boundaries clear, it's also very important for us to respect another person's boundaries, to be more empathetic and understanding and think about their perspectives as well when something goes wrong. Next, we have building trust through boundaries. So as you already know, building or boundaries play a crucial role in building and maintaining trust in relationships. So basically, trust is established when boundaries are respected and honored by both parties. For example, if your classmate respects your boundaries around personal space and doesn't invade it, it builds trust in your working relationship. Another way to establish trust is when there is open communication and transparency about needs and expectations. For example, being honest with your friend about your financial boundaries helps create a sense of trust and security in your friendship. Next, trust can be established when both parties feel secure and respected within the relationship. For example, feeling valued, respected, and understood by your family members or your classmates or friends indicates a strong foundation of trust and respect within the relationship. Next, we have measuring relationship boundaries. Measuring relationship boundaries involves assessing the overall health and satisfaction of the relationship. So please consider these questions. Are both of you, or are both parties able to express your needs and preferences without fear of judgment or reprisal? For example, if you and your friend can have open and honest conversations about your feelings and boundaries without worrying about judgment, it indicates a healthy level of boundary management in your relationship. So it's so for any friendship or relationship, it's very important for you to find a person who would not judge you when you talk about your boundaries. So sometimes when you tell your friend, I don't like when you invade my personal space, sometimes all your friends might not agree to it. They might say that, what's there in that? You're my friend, and I can invade your personal space as such. But then that's not the case. If you're not comfortable, it's very important for you to tell this to them. And if they don't agree to that, or if they don't respect that, that means you can have a conversation with them again. And even after that, if it doesn't help, it's time for you to actually question whether you need this friendship or not, because it's very important for you to find friends or close ones who would not judge you. Next, consider asking questions like, do conflicts related to boundaries get resolved in a peaceful or respectful and constructive manner? For example, if you and your friend can discuss disagreements about boundaries calmly and find mutually acceptable solutions, it shows that effective conflict resolution skills. Next, ask question something like, is there a sense of mutual respect, trust, and understanding within the friendship or relationship? So here, for example, feeling valued, respected, and understood by your family members or colleagues indicates a strong foundation of trust and respect within the relationship. So when you make your boundaries clear, it's also very important for you to know that there is a sense of mutual respect, trust, and understanding within the friendship or relationship or family relationship. So by evaluating these factors, you can understand the effectiveness of boundary management in various relationships. So before we conclude, let's take a moment to recap what we have discussed today. We started by exploring reflective questions about boundaries, which helped us understand our own boundaries and those of others. We considered various aspects such as personal space, emotions, communication, and respect for others' boundaries. We also learned about different types of boundary violations, including physical, emotional, intellectual, and material violations. And again, recognizing these violations is very crucial for addressing them and maintaining healthy relationships. We also discussed effective conflict resolution strategies related to boundaries, such as identifying the issue, communicating calmly, listening actively, seeking compromise, and following up to ensure resolution. We also explored the importance of balancing independence and togetherness in relationships, emphasizing the need to respect each other's autonomy while fostering connection and open communication. We also acknowledged that cultural and personal differences can influence boundary preferences and discussed the importance of respecting and accommodating these differences through open communication and understanding. We also recognized the boundaries may we also recognized that boundaries may change as relationships evolve, and discussed the importance of regularly reassessing and communicating boundaries as needed to adapt to changing circumstances. We also emphasized the importance of empathy and understanding in navigating boundaries effectively, including putting ourselves in others' shoes, validating their feelings, and communicating compassionately. We also discussed how boundaries play a crucial role in building trust in relationships and highlighted the importance of respecting, communicating, and feeling secure within those boundaries. Finally, we explored how to measure the effectiveness of boundary management in relationships by evaluating factors such as communication, conflict resolution, and mutual respect. So that was about today's class. But before we end the session, I want to discuss some of the case studies. So there are different scenarios that I'll discuss. And based on these scenarios regarding boundaries, what interventions can be taken? For example, let the scenario be you're working closely with one of your classmates who often invades your personal space during conversations. So here, the intervention that you can implement is approach your friend in a private and non-confrontational manner, express your feelings calmly and directly using I statements. For example, I feel uncomfortable when you stand so close to me during our conversations. And again, after you communicate this, offer a solution such as suggesting a comfortable distance to maintain during discussions. So if cultural differences are at play, acknowledge them and find a compromise that respects both perspectives. So this was first case scenario and the intervention. So same way, we'll also learn different case scenarios and what interventions can be implemented. So next scenario can be during a family gathering, if one family member consistently dominates conversations and decision making, leaving others feeling unheard. You might have experienced these kind of situations a lot, especially during family gatherings. So here what you can do is initiate a family meeting to discuss the issue openly and respectfully. And again, you can do this when this happens a lot in family gatherings. If it's like, one or two times, we can say it's fine, but then, if it repeats and if it affects your peace of mind and mental health, what you can do is you can start having these interventions. So after initiating a family meeting to discuss the issue openly and respectfully, what you can do is you can also encourage active listening and validation of each family member's perspective. By doing this, you also know what other family member think about this issue, or are you the only one who feels this? After that, you have to establish clear communication guidelines, such as taking turns speaking and actively soliciting input from everyone. Last, implement strategies to ensure that all voices are heard and respected, such as using a talking stick or setting time limits for each person to speak. This is especially when you're having, this will also be helpful when you're having group discussions in class. I'll be back in a second, excuse me. Sorry for that. I'm back. So next scenario can be, suppose a friend frequently shares personal information about you without your consent. So here what you can do is have a one-to-one or one-on-one conversation with your friend, expressing how their actions have affected you. Set clear boundaries. Set clear boundaries about what information is off limits for sharing without your consent. Rebuild trust by discussing the importance of confidentiality and asking for their commitment to respecting your privacy in the future. If necessary, consider reducing the amount of personal information you share with this friend until trust is regained. So even after you have this conversation, even then, if your friend doesn't respect your boundaries, what you can do is make sure that you don't, if you really value this friendship, make sure that you don't really share, or you limit the amount of time that you share about your personal information until the trust is regained. So that's about the previous case scenario. Next scenario can be in terms of romantic relationships. If one partner struggles with setting boundaries around personal time and space, what can we do? So here, initiate an open and honest conversation about your needs and feelings. Clearly communicate your boundaries and the reasons behind them, emphasizing the importance of individual space and independence. Also, brainstorm together to find solutions that meet both partners' needs, such as rescheduling designated alone time or pursuing separate hobbies. Here, you also reinforce the idea that setting boundaries strengthens the relationship by promoting mutual respect and understanding. So that's about having enough space and personal time in a romantic relationship. Next, we have a scenario wherein you're working in a multicultural team where members have different cultural perspectives on boundaries. So here what you can do is foster an open and inclusive team culture where everyone's boundaries are respected. Encourage the team members to discuss their cultural backgrounds and how they influence their boundary preferences. Also establish team norms or rules that accommodate cultural differences, such as asking for consent before physical contact and respecting personal space. Also provide cultural sensitivity training or workshops to increase awareness and understanding of diverse boundary norms. This is especially when you are working in an organization where there are people from different cultural backgrounds. This would work. Maybe in your classrooms, what you can do is you can ask a teacher to conduct, a teacher or counselor to conduct a workshop or in a class on respecting different cultures. The next scenario can be about maybe parent-child relationship. So here, if you have conflicting views on privacy and independence between a parent and a teenage child, what you can do is initiate a calm and respectful conversation with your parent, acknowledging your need for independence while expressing their concerns for your safety as well. Negotiate a compromise that respects both your desire for privacy and your parents' need to ensure your well-being. Also establish clear guidelines for maybe your parents can establish clear guidelines for online safety, such as agreeing on appropriate boundaries for social media use and discussing the importance of open communication. Also, it's very important for you to empower yourself to take responsibility for your online behavior while reassuring while your parents can reassure their support and guidance in this case. So the final case scenario can be a roommate situation where a roommate frequently borrows your belongings without asking. So here what you can do is address the issue directly with your roommate in a calm and respectful manner. Express how their actions make you feel and assert your boundaries regarding personal belongings. You can also set clear expectations for mutual respect and communication, emphasizing the importance of asking for permission before borrowing items. Also find practical solutions to prevent future boundary violations, such as labeling personal belongings or establishing a shared agreement for borrowing items. So these interventions, all the interventions that we just discussed, I think we discussed 7 case studies or case scenarios and interventions. So these interventions aim to address boundary issues in various relationships while promoting open communication, respect, and understanding among individuals. So it's very important for you to be assertive in these cases, especially when when you realize that your boundaries are violated. So by being assertive, we don't mean that you're being aggressive. You tell the other person, or you communicate with other person saying that this makes me uncomfortable, or you have violated my boundaries, and then this is I would not like this to repeat again. So here you're not being aggressive, you're telling this to them very in a very calm manner. So so that is that was about some of the case scenarios and interventions. And again, as we have already discussed, boundaries are the framework of trust, respect, and understanding in any relationship. They define where we end and others begin, creating a space for growth, intimacy, and mutual respect. And again, boundaries in any relationships doesn't mean that the relation you have set, restrictions for your relationships as such. But then here, by having boundaries, it will help you to grow individually as well as the relationship to grow as well. It is no way a rupture in any relationship. It's just a way to have a healthy way of taking the relationship forward. So remember that boundary management is an ongoing process, and it's normal to encounter challenges along the way. By continuing to practice empathy, communication, and respect for boundaries, we can foster stronger, more harmonious relationships in all areas of our lives. So that's about it. So thank you and have a great day. And uh, I hope with this certificate course in psychosocial well-being, you were able to help yourself. You were also able to take the learnings from this course while you interact with others, or even if it's like personal relationships or professional relationships. I hope that whatever you have learned here have helped you in one or the other way. So the some of you must have taken this course because you wanted to help yourself, because you're going through some bad phase, or you're going through some kind of emotional issues as such. So I hope that you were able to build some coping skills. I'm not just talking about boundary management as such, but then whatever we have covered so far, since today is the last session. So what I would like you to do is maybe make a list of things that you have learned in this certificate course and try to implement that during your course of life. So it's also very important, students, to come up with different coping skills that you have, coping mechanisms that you have. So whenever you feel very low, you can try to implement it, and you can also help your friends or family members or your partner to implement their coping mechanism as such. And then again, when you list down your coping mechanisms, it's also very important for you to understand if it's adaptive coping mechanism or maladaptive coping mechanism. And again, psychosocial well-being, when we talk about it, it also talks about taking care of your body, mind, and your emotions as such. So make sure that you stay hydrated enough, and you take care of emotions, and you also communicate very clearly and in a very healthy way in any interpersonal relationships as such. So I would say thank you to everyone who signed up for this course, and let's continue to advocate for mental health and well-being in our communities. As we now this last session, let's honor the progress that we have made and challenges we have overcome. Wishing everyone continued success on your path to promoting psychosocial wellness. Thank you and have a great day.